Dismissed in 15 minutes. The email hit Ethan Graves' inbox at 9:02 a.m. Subject, meeting, conference room 3B from Madison Graves, President. No greeting, no context, just a calendar invite set for 9:15 a.m. Ethan stared at it for a beat, heart thudding once, hard. He'd been through enough budget reviews, staff onboarding sessions, and emergency property calls to recognize when something didn't feel right. This wasn't routine. This was personal. And it was coming from his own sister. He took the long hallway instead of the elevator, a habit formed over 15 years, one last walk through the operational floor of Skyreach Hotels. Staff nodded at him, some unaware this would be the last time they'd see the man who'd kept the engine humming. Madison was already in the room, arms crossed, blazer sharp as a razor. The conference table was empty except for a single manila envelope, face down. "Ethan," she said coolly, "have a seat." He didn't. "What's going on?" She didn't blink. "We're making structural changes. The board has agreed to eliminate the COO role." "You mean eliminate me?" he replied, a flicker. "You've always been valuable operationally, but Skyreach is pivoting. We need innovation, energy." "I've been here for 15 years, Ethan said, voice low. "You've been president for 11 days. "I'm not here to debate," she cut in. "The severance package is generous, 6 months, plus NDA and non-compete clauses." "You already hired someone." He nodded to the envelope. "Let me guess, someone from Marriott?" Madison tapped her nail against the table. "A consultant with scale experience. Our investors expect rapid growth. You focus on the details, but we need someone with vision." "No," he said quietly. "You need someone obedient." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "The HR team has your paperwork. Please return your access card by noon." He stood still, not angry, not even surprised, just finished. She thought she'd won. That this moment, this hollow little firing, was her triumph. But she didn't know. 5 years ago, their father had pulled Ethan aside during lunch at Whitman's Steakhouse and said, "Titles are temporary, but land, Ethan, land is where real power lives." Ethan had listened. He turned to leave, then paused. "Good luck with the Westbrook renovation," he said, just loud enough. Her eyes flickered, just a twitch, but he saw it. Westbrook, their flagship hotel, was behind schedule and $400,000 over budget. Ethan had been managing that problem. Now it was hers. She recovered quickly. "My consultant has handled twice that. We'll be fine." "Of course," Ethan said, and walked out. He passed Derek Cho, Madison's lapdog VP of Strategy, in the hallway. Derek offered a mock smile and muttered, "Guess the dinosaurs really are going extinct." Ethan didn't even look at him. Back in his office, Ethan pulled the framed photo of their grandfather, founder of Skyreach Hotels, from his desk. He placed it into the cardboard box last, his motions methodical. Nothing cracked, nothing emotional, until he reached his car. He sat in silence for a full minute before starting the engine. He didn't drive to his apartment. Instead, he drove past the old corporate office downtown, now a rental property, and parked near Rosie's Diner, the place where Skyreach's first deals were signed. The foundation. The part Madison never valued. At home, he opened a hidden drawer and pulled out the folder titled Lease Renewals Q3. Inside were 3 documents: Westbrook, Burlington, Portland. Each bore his signature. Each detailed land ownership under the company's 3 most profitable hotels. 5 years ago, Ethan had personally purchased the land and leased it back to Skyreach, quietly, legally, without fanfare. They paid him rent every month, and Madison had never noticed. She'd signed those financials herself. He didn't need revenge. He had leverage. The next morning, no daily reports pinged his phone. No staff issues, no vendor complaints. He sat with his coffee on the balcony, watching cargo ships glide across the harbor. Then a text. Javier, Westbrook. Heard what happened. Their loss. Consultants cutting corners already. Crews uneasy. Ethan typed back, "Thanks. Stay safe." Another message followed. From Richard Graves. Subject, breakfast. Rosie's, 8 a.m. That was unusual. His father hadn't invited him to Rosie's in years. The next morning, Ethan arrived 5 minutes early. Richard was already seated, hunched over a black coffee. "She didn't tell me," Richard said. "I found out after the fact." "You didn't stop her either," Ethan replied. Richard didn't argue. "She thinks Skyreach needs a rebrand, more corporate polish." "Is that why Derek's running point now?" Ethan asked. Richard stirred his coffee. "The board trusts her vision." "No," Ethan said, "they trust her optics." They ate mostly in silence, old rhythms, pancakes for Richard, eggs for Ethan. Finally, Richard asked, "What are you planning?" Ethan sipped his coffee. "I own the land. Lease renewals are due in 3 months. You'll raise the rates. I'll bring them to market value. Nothing more." Richard exhaled slowly. "That's going to hurt the company." Ethan's tone was even. "It's already hurting itself." They stepped outside. The morning air was crisp. Richard paused, then placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Your sister plays to win, but you build foundations." Ethan nodded once and walked away. By the time he returned home, his inbox had 3 new emails. One from HR, requesting return of corporate equipment. One from Derek CCing Madison, asking for all missing operational files. One from Skyreach's insurance provider, flagging inconsistencies in property ownership records. The fire had just been lit. He smiled faintly and opened his legal folder. Madison had no idea what she'd walked into. If you've ever been overlooked after years of dedication, type 1 in the comments. You're not alone. The land she didn't read. The first real crack appeared just 4 days after Ethan's dismissal. The email came from Skyreach's insurance provider. Subject, urgent, property ownership verification required. Apparently, during routine policy updates, Madison had tried to modify coverage terms for 3 flagship properties. The underwriters flagged a discrepancy. Skyreach didn't actually own the land under Westbrook, Burlington, or Portland. Ethan chuckled quietly as he sipped his coffee. The bitter irony. She'd fired him without even knowing she'd been signing rent checks to BK Holdings for 5 years. Brandon Kessler Holdings, disguised neatly in financial line items she'd never bothered to read. The next morning, his doorbell rang. He opened the door to find Madison, dressed in business beige, lips pressed in a tight line. Without asking, she stepped inside, stilettos clicking on the hardwood. "You've been dodging calls," she said curtly. "I'm respecting the decision to terminate my employment," Ethan replied, closing the door behind her. She didn't sit immediately. Her gaze swept the room like she was inspecting an asset. "There are missing documents." He raised an eyebrow. "From what I hear, your new consultant should have everything handled." She finally sat, crossing her legs. "Vendor contracts, maintenance logs, full renovation blueprints, lease files." Her eyes narrowed. "And the Westbrook insurance paperwork is out of date." "Everything was on the shared drive," Ethan said evenly. "Organized by property, by department, like always." "Well, your system wasn't exactly intuitive." Her voice sharpened. "My team is still trying to find the foundational contracts. The folders are a mess." "I guess that's what happens when you fire your head of operations without a transition plan." A flush crept up her neck, but she recovered. "If you're withholding company property, we'll pursue legal recourse." Ethan stood slowly. "Do what you need to do, but just to clarify, you're referring to files I created and managed while employed, many of which contain personal annotations, internal projections, and private communications." She scoffed. "You think a court will side with you on that?" "Ask your legal team," Ethan replied. "They've already sent me a certified letter. My attorney's drafting a full response." Madison rose, smoothing her skirt. "This isn't over." Ethan smiled slightly. No, it's just beginning. After she left, he called his lawyer. Prepare documentation on lease agreements for Burlington, Westbrook, and Portland, he said. Include time-stamped digital deeds and transfer records. Later that evening, another message buzzed on his phone. Javier Torres. They brought in an external audit team. Consultants replacing our linen vendor. Cutting night staff. Guest complaints already rising. Ethan sighed, fingers tapping the edge of his desk. He didn't want to get involved, but he had built that team. Loyalty didn't disappear just because your name was deleted from the directory. He replied, "Hold tight. Don't sign anything new until legal reviews." The next morning, he visited the Portland Public Records Office. In a quiet booth, he logged in and retrieved the digital deeds. All confirmed. He was sole owner of the land beneath Sky Reach's crown jewels. He almost closed his laptop until curiosity pushed him to search one more thing. Graves. Something popped up under Madison's married name. A permit. A development application filed 2 years ago under Graves Whitmore LLC, a proposal to build a modern luxury boutique resort just 5 miles outside of Portland. Ethan stared at the screen. Another search. Burlington. Another permit. Westbrook. Another. All tied to Kessler Vision LLC, with Madison as sole proprietor. His blood chilled. This wasn't about innovation. It wasn't about growth. She had been planning to build her own hotel chain, directly competing with Skyreach on parallel locations, using Skyreach's data, vendors, and market research, while still serving as president. Ethan called his attorney. "We have a problem," he said, "and an opportunity." 2 days later, Patricia, his lawyer, called back. "We've confirmed everything. The permits are real. And we obtained her investor deck through a private channel. The language is damning." "How bad?" he asked. "She outlines leveraging Skyreach's infrastructure, tapping existing vendor relationships, even importing current guest preferences and email lists. This goes beyond unethical. It's actionable." Ethan paced his office. The betrayal wasn't what shocked him most. It was the sheer arrogance. Madison assumed he wouldn't notice, wouldn't fight back. She'd bet on his silence. She bet wrong. That afternoon, Craig Lawton, a board member and Madison's old business school buddy, called Ethan privately. "I've seen the insurance red flags," Craig began, his voice tight. "And I've heard rumors." "They're not rumors," Ethan said. "She's building direct competitors with company intel." A long pause. "Are you planning to challenge her at the board level?" "No," Ethan said. "I'm preparing an exit strategy for the properties she's trying to devalue." Craig exhaled. "She wants Skyreach to sell Westbrook and Portland. Says the new lease terms make them unprofitable." Ethan's eyes darkened. "So her company can buy them at a discount." "That was my guess, too." "Thank you for the call," Ethan said. "But let's be clear. If she continues down this path, I'll go public." Craig's voice dropped. "Is that a threat?" "No," Ethan said flatly. "It's a guarantee. If you've ever seen someone rise to power by exploiting others and thought, 'This isn't right,' type 2 in the comments. Let's talk about what real leadership looks like." Boardroom war. The notification lit up Ethan's phone at 7:41 a.m. Subject, special session, Skyreach Board of Directors. Date, charter time. Today, 2:00 p.m. EST location, Skyreach HQ, executive conference room attached was a formal agenda item. Proposal to divest underperforming properties, Westbrook, Burlington, Portland. Ethan stared at the screen, his jaw tightening. She was really doing it. Madison was going to propose selling the buildings, not because they were underperforming, but because she wanted them stripped from the company and lined up for acquisition by her own venture, Kessler Vision LLC. He'd seen the whole roadmap. If approved, Skyreach would liquidate its crown jewels at discounted valuations, and Kessler Vision would swoop in to buy the shells, unaware they'd still have to lease the land from him. She wanted it all, the company, the new brand, and no trace of Ethan. He texted Patricia, "Board vote happening today. Execute Plan B." Minutes later, his inbox pinged again. A reply from Julian Hartman, CEO of Commonwealth Hotels. "Let's talk. If Skyreach is selling, we're ready." Ethan, dressed in a charcoal gray suit he hadn't worn since his last investor pitch 5 years ago. This time, he wasn't representing Skyreach. He was representing leverage. 2 hours before the board meeting, Ethan met Julian in the penthouse suite of the Marcliffe, Commonwealth's flagship Boston property. Julian offered a quiet smile. "We heard through back channels that Skyreach is considering divesting. Interesting timing, Ethan." "I don't think it's a coincidence," Ethan said. "You own the land." Julian nodded. "They can't sell the buildings without negotiating with you. But your sister probably didn't plan for that." "I want to offer Commonwealth first rights to purchase," Ethan said, sliding a folder across the table. "These are the buildings, the operations, staff records, guest retention stats." Julian flipped through, nodding slowly. "Well managed, strong market footprint. I'll continue leasing the land at fair market, but only if Commonwealth guarantees full staff retention and operational continuity." Julian raised an eyebrow. "You're not in this for a payday. I'm in it to protect what I built and the people who kept those hotels running." Julian studied him for a beat. "We'll prepare a formal offer within 24 hours. By 1:55 p.m., Ethan stepped back into Skyreach HQ for the first time in weeks. The conference room hadn't changed. Polished wood, panoramic windows, the company mission statement still etched on glass. Integrity, comfort, legacy. Irony dripped from every word. Madison sat at the head of the table, flanked by Craig and 2 other board members. Their father, Richard, was already seated, looking older, more withdrawn. Ethan took the empty seat across from her. No handshake, no smile. Madison began briskly. "Let's be clear. This meeting is about eliminating liabilities. The Westbrook, Burlington, and Portland properties are no longer sustainable under current lease terms." She clicked a remote. Charts appeared behind her, declining profit margins, rising lease costs, operational inefficiencies, all twisted numbers. "The solution," she said, "is to divest, reallocate capital toward growth markets." Ethan leaned forward. "May I respond?" Craig gave a nod. Ethan slid folders across the table to each member. "This is evidence that while serving as president, Madison was also operating Kessler Vision LLC, an independent hotel venture. These are development permits filed under her married name in the same cities Skyreach currently operates." Richard's hand froze midair. "Is this true?" Madison scoffed. "Kessler Vision is a consulting concept, not active." Ethan flipped to the next page. "This is the business plan. Page 12 outlines acquiring distressed properties after forced divestments. Page 15 includes proposed branding and operational takeover. And on page 20, there's a projection of eliminating 60% of existing Skyreach staff." The room fell silent. Craig cleared his throat. "You didn't disclose this to the board." "I didn't need to," Madison said sharply. "It's exploratory." "It's a direct conflict of interest," Ethan said calmly. "You are trying to devalue and sell properties in order to benefit from their fall." Richard turned to her. "Did you plan to buy them yourself?" Her silence was louder than a confession. Ethan placed one last folder in the center of the table. "This is a counter-offer from Commonwealth Hotels. They've agreed to purchase the buildings above market value. They'll retain every staff member. No layoffs, no hidden schemes." Craig opened it. His eyes widened. "This is generous." Madison's face flushed. "You've been planning this all along. You bought the land. You let the leases expire. And now you're selling out to a competitor." "No," Ethan said. "I bought the land to protect our legacy. You decided I wasn't part of that family anymore." "You're a traitor," she hissed. Richard looked down, weary. "Enough." The vote was called. 3 board members voted in favor of the Commonwealth offer. Richard abstained. Madison stood, trembling with rage. "You'll regret this," she said through clenched teeth. Ethan met her gaze. "You already do," she stormed out. Craig turned to Ethan. "The board will request a resignation tomorrow. We'll need interim leadership." Ethan stood. "I'm not coming back. I've made other arrangements." Later that night, as he walked through Commonwealth's new Westbrook lobby, Javier approached him. "Place feels the same," Javier said, "but the vibe's different. Less fear." Ethan nodded. "It's not about who runs the building, it's about who believes in it. If you've ever watched someone manipulate power to serve themselves and wished someone would fight back, type 3 in the comments. The quiet ones often carry the loudest truths. Foundations that hold. The news broke at 6:42 a.m. in the hospitality blogosphere like a contained explosion. Kessler Vision LLC files for bankruptcy protection after failed expansion attempt. Ethan Graves read the headline twice before setting his phone down on the counter beside his French press. No satisfaction, no gloating, just silence. He poured his coffee, watching steam rise and fade, as if the whole war with Madison had been a fever dream. Except the scars were real, and so were the consequences. Later that morning, he took the elevator to the rooftop of the Harbor View Hotel, formerly Westbrook, now the shining gem in Commonwealth's Northeast collection. The ocean sparkled just past the glass railings, and familiar voices drifted up from the lobby bar. Javier's laughter. Denise from guest services answering the phone in that warm, deliberate tone. The place was still breathing. "Revenue's up 17%, said a voice beside him. Ethan turned to see Julian Hartman, Commonwealth's CEO, handing him a clean quarterly report. "Occupancy rates are outperforming the market by 12 points. "I'm not surprised," Ethan said. "These properties were never broken. They were just mismanaged." "You're a quiet operator, Graves," Julian said, stepping beside him. "But you built something that held." Ethan studied the shoreline. Madison never understood that. It wasn't the glass walls or marble counters that kept this place standing. It was the people, the systems, the bones. Julian glanced sideways. "Any regrets?" Ethan didn't answer right away. "Only that it had to be this way. Families shouldn't end in boardrooms." That afternoon, Ethan met his father, Richard, for their monthly dinner at a small Italian restaurant tucked between 2 brownstones. Red booths, warm lighting, no reporters, no corporate agendas. Richard had aged. Retirement suited him in some ways, hollowed him in others. "Madison's staying quiet," he said over bruschetta. "She's not returning calls." Ethan nodded. "Sometimes silence is a confession." "I failed both of you," Richard muttered, folding his napkin into a square. "I let her take the spotlight and left you with the weight. I thought I was being fair." "You were being hopeful," Ethan replied. "But fairness isn't blind. It just demands attention." They didn't talk about Kessler Vision again, or the final vote, or the staff that stayed loyal to Ethan. Instead, they talked about his niece's soccer team, his nephew's coding obsession, the things that still mattered. As they parted in the parking lot, Richard touched Ethan's arm. "What you did, it wasn't revenge. It was protection." "Sometimes," Ethan said, "they look the same." The next day, Commonwealth's board formally appointed Ethan as Director of Regional Operations, a consulting role he had designed himself. No office politics, no corner desk, just pure infrastructure and people. He traveled from Burlington to Portland, meeting housekeepers and chefs, maintenance workers and front desk staff. His presence didn't disrupt, it stabilized. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, it was to fix things, quietly, thoroughly. One morning in Burlington, Denise pulled him aside. "The coffee vendor's trying to renegotiate, double the rate." Tell them we're exploring local options, Ethan said, and give their competitor a trial order. She grinned. Old you would have just eaten the cost. Old me worked for people who didn't listen, he replied. Now I listen first. 6 months later, while reviewing supplier data in his home office, he got a message. From Madison Graves. Subject, none attachment. One image. He hesitated before opening it. The image was of their grandfather standing in front of the original Sky Reach Hotel, frame cracked slightly but still standing. No words, just the photo. He didn't reply. On a gray Sunday, he walked alone past the Burlington Pier, waves slapping the rocks below. He passed a family of 4, mother chasing a toddler, father balancing a coffee and stroller. It struck him then, in the smallest way, he hadn't saved a business. He'd saved an idea. That legacy wasn't built with marble and deals. It was built with deliberate care, earned trust, and unshakable foundation. His phone buzzed. Richard Graves. Dinner tonight. Bringing the grandkids. We'll keep it light. Ethan typed, looking forward to it. He slipped his phone into his jacket and took one last glance at the shoreline. The hotels still stood, the land still held, the people still thrived. Madison was gone. Her buildings never got off the ground. Ambition without roots is just scaffolding. But Ethan? He never needed a tower. He built something deeper. He walked away from the view toward the streetlight glow of home. If you believe legacy isn't about who talks loudest, but who builds what lasts, type 4 in the comments. Foundations don't need fanfare, just strength.